Hey, we're live. Causing trouble, Toby Davis. This is John Skinner. Say hello.
Hello. How you doing, guys?
Hope you're all doing marvelously well. I actually am not prepared. Go figure. I never am. So give me 1 second. I'm going to open up YouTube here on a laptop, which is precariously balanced behind the cell phone, which we are going through. And the reason why I'm going to open it up so I can see your questions, because the problem with the cell phone, of course, is you can't actually see anything. How are you today? When did you arrive in sunny Los Angeles? How long have you been
So I avoided the rain in LA. Got
Sunny
here
Los
last Sunday.
Angeles.
So last Sunday, and I'm here till Thursday morning, and then I go to the NAB show in Vegas for about 5 days. So
Fun.
That's the National Association of Broadcasters. For those of you who might not know what the NAB show is.
Should I be
But
going
it's
there?
good. It's quite, it's all techie broadcast equipment, the latest green screen technology, but there's a lot of pro audio companies that go, so all those guys go, and there's some of the big production library companies go, and that's really the reason why I'm kind of going. So
I should go.
You should go, definitely. It's a good
Yeah.
excuse to go to Vegas, basically. It actually kicks off this Saturday, so I'm going a couple of days early, and then back to Blighty on Wednesday.
This is interesting. Raises a very interesting question, because I get asked all the time, and I'm sure a lot of people here, a lot of these people I'm seeing the names, hey Terry, Frederick, a lot of our Academy members are on here, and they ask this all the time. There's a lot of these conferences, and there's a lot of conferences that are about music licensing and publishers, and sometimes I personally am a little skeptical, because I go to some of the sort of smaller ones and I'm like, hey, that's my friend's assistant.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And so how do you differentiate? I think, how do people get through the minefield of where they should go?
Well, I mean, look, it's a B2B relationships business that we're in. So at the end of the day, you've got to, if you really are serious about, if you're pitching your music, or you, for example, obviously sync.
Yep.
If you want relationships with music supervisors or sync agents or publishers, the best way really to build is to build some rapport. That's key. So
Interesting.
I think pick and choose, but I mean ultimately it comes down to it depends as well on your market knowledge. Knowledge is powerful. So if you know your market and you know the people that you want to not target, that sounds a bit kind of like that sounds a bit sort of Bond villain-esque, but no, I mean, look, at the
I
end
mind
of the
some
day,
Bond villain-esque parts. That's kind of cool.
if no, look, it's these guys are inundated. The bottom line is they're inundated
Sure.
with music, and ultimately, if you can get on their radar and you can show them some sort of context that you've made the effort to go and meet them, they're
Sure.
more likely to kind of like pick up their email, listen to something that you've sent them, etc., etc.
So, what do you think as an artist? I suppose if you're a solo artist and you are able to support yourself, you can probably rep yourself to a certain extent.
Yeah,
What's your sort of feeling? Do you feel like you need to get behind, have other people represent you?
I think personally it comes down to time, and it comes down to how you are going to. I mean, my personal opinion is if you're an artist, you're a writer, you're a producer, you're a creator, you're making music, that really should be quintessentially what you focus on.
Sure.
Writing great songs, co-writing, collaborating with other people, and that's where obviously like sync agents come in. Well, now if obviously you are sending music to people and stuff, it is important that you have your metadata on there and you do it in the right way. So it's kind of like a bit of a catch-22 really. Like anyone in the music industry, you should be as proactive and entrepreneurial as you possibly can, and it's about getting really good people around you, being as resourceful as possible, and that might be a manager, it might be an agent, but ultimately, no one's going to look after your own self-interest as better than you can. So it's really about picking and choosing who it is that can best represent you.
I'm going to ask some sort of questions I've seen. I find that when you were on the music side and you were making your own music, did you do it yourself? Did you create this business because you thought to yourself, well, I want a way of like getting my music out there? Did you see?
So
What I want to know is, I want to know the pitfalls, the reasons why you did this, because I know why I started this. Because I got frustrated and banging my head against a brick wall, and I was like, I'm not going to rely on anybody else anymore. I'm going to start my own business. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, there was those. So just to give a little bit of context, so I started making records in around about 93, 92, 93. I'd set up an independent record shop. And really, again, back then, no internet, obviously. There was still a kind of a vinyl scene as far as distributing music and stuff. That it was still quite relatively limited. But at the end of the day, I think that the barriers back then were distribution was a bigger barrier.
Sure.
It was just as hard to get a distribution deal than it was to actually get signed to a record label. But there was a DIY route. You could literally go to a pressing plant, you could get $1,000, you get 1,000 records printed, and if you wanted to, you could drive them around the record shops. So you really could do it. It was just kind of obviously quite limited. It's a lot harder to do that. And now, the problem we've got now is that whilst there's self-distribution, the barriers to get your music out there are not there. The problem is now it's all about how do you cut through the noise. And you asked me like what was the kind of reasons why I got into doing what I'm doing. You know, I used to do a lot of co-writes with people in America and in Europe, working with a lot of singer-songwriters. And you know, I used to fly people over, not all the time because it was expensive, and that was half the battle. So the real main concept and the reason behind starting Music Gateway really was to help streamline the way people got connected in that kind of B2B relationship. But the principles of it was people posting briefs and projects, like defining a need. What exactly do they want to do? The problem I find with LinkedIn and sites like that, whilst it's a good shop window for your kind of portfolio, when you make connections, it's quite rare that something actually comes of it. People just kind of building up a network. With Music Gateway, if you want to do a co-write, you're looking to get connected with another musician or a producer, and you want to do something collaborative, you can do that where it's, again, like a kind of dating principle where both people get connected. We've got a coffee machine in the background, so you get...
There's a coffee machine, but making there.
Making a lovely sound. So, no, so that was really the principles behind it. And then Sync came after that. Sync was never on my radar. I did my first Sync in 2000 to a Sony PlayStation game. It was very nice, but they came knocking on my door to license this track. And as I said, Sync was never really a thing like back then. Certainly not for me anyway. But obviously, as the industry's changed, it's become a much more, fundamental, where it's become a revenue stream, but also a kind of a route to market. If you get a great sync, that can lead to open lots of other doors. It's obviously exposure. It can also, and it has done, led to people getting signed and getting deals, apart from just the monetary reward of getting a fee.
I have many friends that make a living from sync, a very good living, and couldn't get a record deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still, to this day, would not be signed.
Yeah.
Because they don't fulfill a certain radio friendliness, but they write songs which are perfect for film and TV.
Absolutely, yeah. So that was my kind of motivations, really. It wasn't sort of self-motivation in the sense of like, I had all these issues myself, being an indie producer and making music and working and stuff. And I licensed records on to to Sony and to EMI. So I was kind of a typical indie feeder into no discredit to some people obviously, but there's a kind of a checkbook A&R and stuff. Once you've got a certain amount of traction, people will come knocking. So yeah, hopefully that's answered your question.
No, it's good. The reason why I asked that question is because I think it would, knowing why you started something tells me a lot about what the business model is and what you do.
Yeah.
Because for me, I started this because I kept on hitting these barriers and things. So my question is, you know what? I'm going to stop asking questions. I'm going to have a quick look here.
There's a few comments.
Yeah, some really good ones coming up here.
Talking about the the music and TV and film and how you get stuff in.
Basic questions. Mojo's Army said, sync licensing equals licensing music for games or moving pictures or any kind of TV and music. Yes. You see, Anita's asking, I have LinkedIn but haven't done anything with it. It just sits there. I mean, I find.
I mean, if we get to the heart of this with regard to music licensing and stuff like that, and sync licensing, you know, look, you've got two main routes really, or three main routes of getting your music placed. You've got that DIY route about building relationships directly with the music supervisors. You know, they have their trusted sources. Basically, that's how they describe them. So, you know, taking unsolicited approaches and stuff like that and sending music out, it's unlikely that you're going to get a result. I think the best thing, and this is where you mentioned about the conferences or networking or social events that are happening, if you can build some rapport with people and then send them something that's got context in your approach. Look, you know, I know it sounds like basics, but, you know, look, it was great to meet you last week, or saw you on this panel, or blah, blah, blah. If you show them that you've gone out of your way, and research is absolutely key. If you're pitching to Nora Felder, for example, who is the supervisor on Stranger Things, she does Ray Donovan, she works for CBS, she's an independent freelance supervisor working, you know, she's got one assistant, but essentially she's working on lots of different shows. You know, time and time again, I've heard this from her and others, that it's, if you do your research and find out what shows a supervisor is actually working on, then pitch something that's relevant to them. So, you know, if Ray Donovan uses lots of hip hop and it's lots, you know, there's certain, you know, cues and styles of music, or Stranger Things, you know, Stranger Things, it's pre-1984 authentic music. So if you don't have pre-1984 authentic music, don't pitch pitch anything for that, because, you know, and if you've got covers, modern covers, they're not going to use it. It's just really, really key that you do your research. But again, that takes time, and if you don't have that time, then if you work with a sync agent, and there's a few sync agents out there, obviously we are a sync agent as well, so you can register on our platform. We listen to absolutely everything that gets submitted to us. We have a research team, so we are obviously working with supervisors on a day-to-day basis, and again, it's about pitching relevant music and being proactive and stuff like that. So the other options really, so those are your really two options. The other thing obviously is to get a publishing deal. You know, a good publisher should have, you know, it's worth, if you're ever asked or offered a publishing deal, find out how proactive they are in the sync world. If sync is something that's really important to you, do they have a dedicated sync person? And also ask whether they are a licensing person, or are they a kind of a proactive sync person? Because, you know, if you're a big company like Peer Music, you know, they've got such a great repertoire, but they tend not to be too outward facing, whereas maybe a smaller independent is a little bit more like, right, they've got a smaller catalogue,
more aggressive,
and they can be a little bit more, you know, building relationships and all that stuff. You know, if you're Peer Music, and no discredits to Peer Music, but, you know, they've got huge copyrights, people are going to be knocking on their doors, they get the briefs, they can pitch that way. So it's kind of like, you know, again, like even you know, all the best artists and people that I know that get lots of sync placements, even if they've got a publishing deal, it doesn't stop them building relationships and having kind of fingers in pies, because that's you know, that is the nature of our business, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think over the last 10 years, I've noticed that there's all this very grey area now. There's people that come to me, they send me emails, and they forward me something to look at and say, I've been offered a publishing deal, and it will be called publishing deal, but it's just it's a sync deal, and they're trying to take their publishing, and they're not offering them anything in return, and they want exclusivity. There's a obviously what you do is crystal clear and totally transparent, and that's what I like about a lot of the new tech companies. I was just reading this morning about Daniel Ek and why he's doing so well on Spotify, is because, like it or not, people can complain about the percentage, but like it or not, he is very transparent. It's very easy to see where the money's coming from, where it's going. With the traditional publishing and record deals, which I was in many of, you have to sue them to get the numbers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, things that you should. I mean, I'm seeing a couple of questions coming up, you know, as well. You know, what is a sync deal and all that sort of thing.
Great.
So just to be clear, a sync deal, a placement is essentially synchronizing any type of music to a visual. So that can be ads, it can be games, it can be obviously TV and film. In America, I mean, I think most of your guys that are on board might be in America. You obviously have no blanket license like in the UK and some of the European territories. So that works. So basically, someone has to pay a fee if they want to license your music to use it. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously you can essentially, sometimes there are, you know, a deal where no fees paid, but you have to agree to that. But normally there's a fee that's paid, and then there's a royalty that's paid that goes back through the standard PROs for for broadcast.
Is there a difference between the US and the UK, for instance? Because over here, if there was $1,000, 50% would go to the publisher, 50% would go to the master sync holder.
Yeah. So the only difference in the UK really is that there's kind of, you know, there's a blanket agreement for usage on TV. So anything that's used for broadcast, both on radio and for television, except for advertising. So then there's a kind of a rate card style deal. So there's everyone gets the same amount of money, and you can use what you want inside that territory. Where, for example, so Top Gear is a great example where they will use carte blanche what they want. That's why you see AC/DC and massive copyrights. But then what happens is when they want to export and broadcast Top Gear around the world, it goes out to America, to BBC Worldwide. They strip out all of the music because obviously they don't have it under license for worldwide rights, and then they replace it with normally with production music or other copyrights that are clearable.
Interesting.
So, but that's again that's time. That's that's obviously quite costly and quite time consuming.
I would imagine that's a business model, isn't it? You come along and you sign up for Top Gear and you basically do all the classic rock.
Well, this is. I mean, yeah. I mean,
are they going to one company for that? Are they
normally. I think again, this is where again, if you're a composer and you write music, and the other route I haven't mentioned
is business models here.
Production library companies. So if for those of you who don't know, there's a just Google production library companies.
Sure.
There's the likes of BMG, Killer Tracks, First Com. I mean, there's a ton of bunch of companies out there, and again, it's all about approaching them with the best music that you have, particularly. But again, some people are writing music specifically for media. So, and again, production music is not commercial music. In other words, it's registered with a PRO as a different style of music, and you get a enhanced mechanical in the UK. I don't know what you do. I think it's the same rules in the US actually. So where you get a standard commercial rate when your music's broadcast, for use for production library music, I think you get like 3 times the rate, because it's not commercial music. It's made specifically for media and stuff. So that's another route that you might want to look at if you're struggling to get your music out there, but you've got great instrumental tracks. And the vast majority of production music is instrumental, and the vast majority of music that's synced is instrumental. So obviously if you're going for that title or that end track, obviously it might be a song, obviously it might be a full-on song.
Somebody's asking you, can you point to some music libraries that pay up front? I don't know of any, and if they were offering up front, they probably want to own the tracks.
Let me answer that, yes. So the standard model for production library companies is that they will buy out the master, which means that they will pay up front for to buy out the master, and they will own the master 100%. So I'm not going to name names, but you're looking at between £500, that's about $750, to $2,000 per master, depending on the company. Some of them will do a kind of a 50-50 on the master, but they also, obviously with production library, they need to own all of the publishing. So again, that's normally a 50-50
Okay, so I have a question
split.
Because that isn't typical of America. That might be typical of the UK.
Well, I know a couple of companies that do that and do the master buyouts, but again, it's in America. So I'm not going to name them because and stuff like that. But a couple of big companies that I know do that classic thing because they want to own the masters. At the end of the day, when they do a sync.
I just know a lot of companies that offer deals that want to own the master with no money up front.
Okay, well then I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because at the end
I wouldn't do that either. So
do not do that.
Do not do that. But I
I
see those contracts coming in all day.
Listen, avoid at all costs any company that is doing what's called retitling. So retitling is where they will take your catalogue or take your music, and the structure is they will pitch your music, and if and when they get a placement, what they do is they re-register the work at the PRO and then take 50% of the publishing. So what they do is, and that's actually a legal practice. You should not be doing that. So it's frowned upon in the industry. The supervisors don't like it. It's not good at all. So because essentially you're registering the same piece of music twice, and at the end of the day, it's and the reason why these guys are doing this is because they're essentially, and I can't speak on behalf of all of them, but a lot of them are bottom feeding in the sense of like they will go in and try and do kind of like blanket studio deals where they'll give music gratis to try and then get a deal where they're getting half of the back end. And to be honest with you, that just does not help the industry as a whole, because it's devaluing music, full stop. Like,
it's been around forever though, because I've lived here 20 years and it's been going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's been going on for a long time, but I think, again, really, it's down to, there's doing things a different way and having a kind of disruptive model, and then there's just doing things that are just vaguely wrong. They're just morally wrong, and it's not good for.
I just want to say this is the most honest, frank conversation I've ever seen on music licensing ever on the internet.
No, it's really...
I've never seen anybody be this honest.
No, cool. Another thing, just to point out, just because it sprung to mind, obviously with games, there's no back end on gaming. So basically, if you get a sync license with a game, it's purely about the fee that you get. For the sync license. Just quickly as well, work for hire. If we talk about just quickly work for hire, there's obviously a lot of companies out there. If you're lucky enough, or you score music, or you're a composer on a TV show, what tends to happen is, again, you will get paid a fee. Sometimes the studio or the company that you're working for might insist on picking up half the publishing. That's a choice for you to decide. Sometimes they won't insist on that, and you simply get paid for the work you're doing, for all of those cues that you provide. They own the master rights, and then you own your publishing. It's as simple as that. So that tends to what happens there. So that's another potential route, and that's actually, do you know what? That's getting to know the directors and the TV execs, and sometimes the music editors can be really helpful, because, not just the music editors, but the actual editors, because music editors are quite specialist in their thing, but just general editors. When it's a really low budget film or a really low budget production, they can't afford a supervisor. It's as simple as that. They don't have the budget. So normally it's left to the editor normally they temp in a bunch of stuff that they can't, it's just whilst they're getting everything prepped in post. And then it's really about stripping out and replacing it. And the first point of call that they go to is normally production library companies, because it's cheap, because it's cheaper than licensing commercial music. But ultimately, if you have a good amount of music, and you have a relationship, then again, that might be an option for you to pitch your stuff and work with the editor, and then get in with the director or the TV production company. That's another route potentially to kind of get your stuff placed into shows and into films and stuff.
That's pretty cool. I have seen quite a few unscrupulous music supervisors trying to take people's publishing, though. It's very common. I'm sorry to say. Seth, hey, I write songs without targeting for sync, but I would still like to sync and placements if possible. Is it better in this case to mix instrumental versions of my songs, or simply try to target as is?
Well, just quickly on that.
I know Seth is very talented. He and his wife.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Hi, Steph. First, this goes for everyone, really. It's key that you get instrumentals run off of all of your tracks, and ideally run off stems. And I would always run off a dry set and a wet set of stems, so that you've got that backed up, ready to go. you know, as I
I
said,
second that, and if you're on a console like I am, do it at the time because there's nothing worse than trying to recall your
there's
whole
nothing.
mix.
Absolutely, I
And,
mean,
oh,
that's you know,
it's 3 o'clock in the morning because
that's a world of pain.
the sinkers in Germany, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning here, and they want it in an hour, and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you know, if you are, you know, advertising really is where all the money is. And if you're lucky enough to get something or get some traction on a trailer or something like that, you know, there's never a time when they don't edit something.
Sure.
You know, it's always edited, and they always need to strip something out or change something and stuff like that because it's just that nature of that world. So,
Sure.
you know, and ultimately, whilst you might have a killer track, they're up against the clock. So if you don't have the track ready to rock, you don't have your ducks in a row as far as, you know, who wrote it, who owns the master, who's the publishing rights. If you don't have it ready to clear and sign off on some paperwork, then they will move on, and you'll potentially lose that opportunity. So it's making sure that you have all your kind of paperwork in the row as well, especially if you co-write with people. And, you know, you get your registrations done, obviously, if you're a PRO, but make sure you got permission with the other writer in advance that they're happy for you to,
Sure.
you know, if a sync comes in and all that sort of stuff, are they happy for that to happen, you know, with moral rights and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, because you will get situations where obviously artists won't want to be associated with alcohol or cigarettes or sometimes religious things. It doesn't happen that often because there isn't that many people, you know, looking for music in that world. But
Yeah.
you have to make sure you talk to your co-writers and get that stuff cleared in front. What about covers being used for placement? I know I got hired to do covers.
Yeah, so covers are a really good one, actually, if I can just cover that. So first of all, yeah, first of all, don't cover anything. If you're going to cover something to do just a commercial release, cool. That's no problem at all. If you are looking to specifically do a flipped cover, you know, so you know it's a classic male vocal song. You do a female vocal slowed down version. You know, though that's been in kind of trend for the last kind of 5 years, and it's not going away. So if you can do those kind of like cool flipped, I call them kind of flipped, almost disguised nostalgic covers, that's great. But you know, and again, it all depends on your relationship. But approach the publisher first. You know, it's no good doing Heroes by David Bowie. They will not clear it. If you do something where the artist is the writer,
stay away from Bowie.
if the artist is the writer,
Yep.
it's extremely unlikely that they're going to authorize, because they'll obviously want their original master to be synced, and that's why, you know, if you do a cover version of, you know, Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics, you know, Dave is not going to allow a cover version, even though he's earning on the publishing end. He's going to say no. I want double the fee, and I want, you know, and you can use my original master. So the best cover versions are where you can get a relationship with the publisher, and also find songs that were written by songwriters and not by the original artists.
Sure.
Because usually you're dealing with either their estate, if they passed away, or they just are not going to clear it.
I have seen, it was a couple of years ago, I've seen lists that publishers put out searching for covers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Covers are absolutely, you know, mega popular and stuff, because the marketeers and the advertisers love them, because it's just it's instant, you know, eyes and ears on their advert, because there's that recognizable straight away instant hook. Oh, I love this song, you know,
right.
and you know, and that is the power of songs. You know, I think that you know, no one run out of the kitchen because the hi-hat was amazing on a, whilst don't, you know, obviously I'm talking to someone who's you know, look, don't get me wrong, the production obviously is key, because it's obviously, you know, it's everything coming together, the music, everything else, and the production. But ultimately, I think that, you know, for advertisers, they are, you know, the lazy ones are ticking boxes. The really cool ones that are breaking ground, and they're taking risks, cool. But the vast majority, they tend to tick box is a little bit unfair, but you get the point I'm trying to make.
I understand.
They have to be accountable to their bosses. You know, their jobs are on the line. They've got to reach their figures. They've got to reach their numbers. They've got to get a return. And if ultimately they take a risk and it doesn't pay off, then, you know, they potentially going to get, you know.
All right, so I got a philosophical question, and this is totally selfish, everybody. And I'll make this quick, and my people who watch me hear this all the time. My perception of living and working professionally in the UK and the US is that the UK definitely moves quicker, definitely more about innovation. I come here, it's very business, very, very business, and very, you see a lot of hands in everything, and everybody's trying to make a dollar out of everything. So I always, when I watch film and TV, especially when I watch TV commercials in America, they always seem 10,000 times safer than what I just saw last week when I was in England. So the question is, if you're writing and recording music, you know, what specifically for sync licensing, should you be thinking about different markets?
Well,
I'm just intrigued.
I mean, you know, this question has come up a few times about, like, you know, on various panels about, like, you know, what should people really kind of write for sync. Now, my gut instinct is that if you're an artist and you're a musician and, you know, you're a writer, you should just be focusing on writing good songs. Like that should be absolutely, and, you know, and I think that, you know, what you could do is that you should always express yourself and be original, try and be yourself and be original. That's key. Now, there's no harm in then taking that and then maybe doing a remix or doing a new version or doing something else that then lends itself to a certain market.
Sure.
You know, advertising tends to be, you know, major keys, up tempo, fun, inspiring, you know, so it's, you know, strings, it's builds, there's drops and builds. You know, if you're a singer-songwriter and you have a great song and a nice hook, but it's kind of quite monotone in the sense of, like, the dynamics of the song, it's not probably going to lend itself, unless it's a killer commercial radio record, to sync. You know, so there are, and this, I think, you know, a bit of advice will definitely, you know, give people is that if you write good songs, it's key to work with other producers to get different sounds and get different styles. If you look at Disclosure's You or Me, that Flume remixed, that was used on several car adverts and various other brands, the original wasn't synced. It was the remix that got synced.
Sure.
And it was in his style. And, you know, and it's got 50 million, you know, views on YouTube, and it's, you know, it's people know that track from that version and not from the original. So
question. This is a good question that sprung up then. So let's just say you're a singer-songwriter. I see a lot of names of people I know up here that are writers. You know, and really turn your monitor off to 5 minutes. Oh, okay. There's a separate conversation going off there. I was like, I thought you were talking to us, telling us we had to turn our monitor off. So what was the train of thought? The
singer-songwriters.
Oh, singer-songwriters. Do you have an opinion on what you should give somebody who remixes your song? Because if you're let's say you sit there and you write a 145 acoustic, somebody goes along and remix. Is there an industry standard?
I mean, the industry standard is it's a work for hire. I mean, that is the industry standard. If you pay someone to do a remix, it's your song. Whoever wrote the original track retains. And again, you get someone to do, you know, a remix, and you pay them a set fee. And you own the master, and that's it. Lovely jubbly. The problem you've got
is a lot of independent artists don't have $1,000.
Exactly, yes. And, you know, and I think, look, that's where you can cut deals. And I think as long as you're transparent and you come to an arrangement, that, you know, maybe you share ownership of the master rights. At the end of the day,
that's what I've offered. There's one of our viewers is a great remixer, and we do a 50-50 deal of any upfront money. Not the publisher, not the writer's side, but 50-50 on anything.
I mean, you know, again, like, you know, you've got to kind of weigh up, like, you know, what is the remixer bringing to the table? It's their time, it's their skill, it's their production. What is the singer-songwriter bringing to the table? Well, they wrote the lyric and melody normally, like, you know, and they've got the core structure and maybe you know, some more of the musical elements to it. or the chord structures or whatever. So I think it's a good way of, what tends to happen with a lot of remixes and productions, especially in the dance world and stuff as well, is that they do lack songwriting, lyric and songwriting and melody, abilities, skills, and they tend to be more tech savvy, whereas it's the other way round for singer-songwriters. So, at the end of the day, I think if you marry it together, because and that's why all the best, most successful dance people like Daft Punk, like Disclosure, they like Naughty Boy, they work with great singer-songwriters and artists that complement their production.
I just work with Conrad Saul.
Right. Yeah.
That song with Kygo Fire is we looked at it the other day and it's close to 1 billion or something.
Yeah,
streams or something. It's insane. But you can just see how that world works. You've got this incredible Australian singer with tons of personality.
I mean, Nile Rodgers is a great example of someone who's, and I've seen him talk several times at different conferences about, he's such an advocate for collaboration. Mm-hmm. Everyone, he kind of he says it not in an arrogant way, but he just says it he says, look, I'm quite good at what I do, sure. And stuff, and I just work with good people, that complement what I do. So, when I was working with Sister Sledge, or I was working with Chic, or I was doing stuff with Bowie, or whatever it was that he was doing, he'd be brought in. Yeah,
he would. Boss. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the key thing. I mean, everyone is their own A&R guy. You've got to go out and find talented people that like what you're doing.
Sure.
And surround yourself with people that that bring other creativity to the table that maybe aren't your strengths. And it's recognizing those.
Absolutely.
Strengths.
I mean, there's collaboration will raise your game.
Absolutely.
I mean, the worst thing you can learn when you're in a room with somebody else working is a new chord sequences, a new melody, an idea, and whatever. You're always going to learn.
Yeah, and it's very you mentioned about. I mean, it's easy for us to let ourselves down when you make a commitment to someone. It's harder to let someone else down because there's that whole guilt thing, Yeah. So you tend to get projects to the end, and there's that kind of staying power sometimes. Sometimes it's not going to work. At the end of the day, not everything is going to work. But you don't know until you try. I think that's the key thing. So.
I think the other thing that would probably be important is if you're a singer. This is just my personal opinion. If you're a singer-songwriter and you have a song idea that you've gone, just complete it as its own entity and then allow a remixer to work on it. Because there's nothing worse than maybe working with somebody, giving them a part of your publishing, only to find out you don't like the end result. And then suddenly they're a co-writer. So finish your song, register your song, then look for remixes to work with if that's what.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Is there any?
There's tons. Do singer-songwriter artists do they do the shopping to the publishers? I mean, we started off talking about with John about
I mean, just a quick question on that. The power of actually working with other songwriters or other artists. In fact, they are natural introductions to their manager, natural introductions to their publisher if they're published, etc. And I think that working globally is key. There's so many things you can do remotely these days. We've obviously got on MusicGateway, we've got project management tools that help people not only make the connection, but they can share their files. And I think that ultimately, if you want to break, if you think your music really lends itself great to the Europe as opposed to American, and then what a better way than actually working with some people in the UK that, again, like I said, that might already have a deal. That, again, can open doors. I think it's nothing ventured, nothing gained is definitely the route to go.
Hey everybody! By the way, I see a ton of Academy members here. Musa just popped up as I said that. John's going to be answering questions in a forum this week. So those of you that are Academy members, you can ask specific questions and get a specific answer. We're going to try and cover. I mean, he's already honestly given us more information than I've seen any other person in the industry ever do. Thank you for that.
That's all right. No,
most people aren't quite so forthcoming. They try to be very politically correct. But you're telling us a lot of great stuff here. Talking about the retitling thing, that's something. And you're right, I've identified it with a lot of, you use the word bottom feeders, so I'll use it again. A lot of those guys and girls that I've worked with, that's their sort of go-to thing.
Yeah.
And it's difficult because I also don't have any kind of way of tracking that stuff. I don't know if I'm getting paid on it or not.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because you know, ultimately, if you know, you've obviously got to get your registrations done, but the system is can so easily break down, and you know, there are some good software tools out there that you can use to track what usage that you do have. Like there's a company called TuneSat, where they will again TuneSat, yeah,
SAT,
yep. And there's another company I'm trying to think that do this as well. But basically, they would track basically broadcast and for TV and radio, and they will kind of give you the reporting, which then you can compare back to your PRO statement. So if you can see that you've had you're getting some good little syncs and stuff like that, or you're getting some good usage on YouTube and your etc., and nothing's coming back, then obviously that's something that you can then go and query with your PRO and go through their procedures. Again, you know,
I want to put together a little cheat sheet here.
Oh well, yes.
Let's put together a cheat sheet because there's a couple of these companies that I didn't know about TuneSat. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few. I mean, like, you know, again, if you get online and broadcast, sort of Google broadcast tracking or something like that. There's a few little solutions out there that are good.
But this is cutting through the noise as well, though, because I do spend my life on Google looking up stuff, but I'm usually hit with 20 adverts before I get to any real information. And then, unless I'm actually talking to somebody that's working in this world like you are, I don't really have any point of reference. I need a point of reference for somebody to go, this works, as opposed to 50 people trying something.
Yeah, well, I think this is the key, and obviously, thanks for bringing me on and having the opportunity to speak to people, because it's I think whatever you do in life, if you become a I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, I'm quite a modest person. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but okay, I know quite a bit about the market. If you can share this information, it's nothing but going to help people, and I think that. Depending on, I think, again, as you get a little bit more older and you get a bit more wiser, you want to share the information that you've learned. It doesn't matter what industry you're in and stuff like that. If most people, and I am quite an optimistic person, I believe most people that are out there to actually help people. So I think, your site and other and things like this is very powerful to engage with people and sharing that knowledge, definitely.
Speaking of which, please like and share. I see there's 358 people watching. Thank you ever so much. Please like and share, then YouTube will let other people know we're on.
Someone just asked about sync revenue.
Yeah, please.
Shall I cover that?
Oh, please.
I mean, look, there's no don't take this as carte blanche, because it varies so much. But if you are talking about reality, non-scripted TV, that tends to be down the kind of the bottom end of the market, in the sense of, like, you could be looking at $300-500 a queue and stuff. But so shows like that are on MTV, they tend to be heavy with music. They might have 50 queues in one show, in one episode, and because it's wall-to-wall music, because it's a lot of filler.
I've had tons of songs on MTV, and they rarely pay anything up front.
Well, there you go. So there's that. As I said, like, advertising really is where the big bucks is.
Yeah.
So the way the TV studios work as well, and the film studios, is that the budgeting for marketing is separate to the music, the budget for the music that goes into the TV show or the film. So, and there's no set rule. There's no set rule to what the budget is. If you've got a $5 million total budget film, you may have 100 grand, 150 grand for the music. Sometimes, they throw around a figure of around about 3%, between 1.5% and 3% of the total budget. So again, if you've got a 10 million budget film, it might be that they've got, 250 grand, 300 grand for the total budget of the music. What they tend to do as well, and this is just general power of the songs, they might blow 100 grand on a big copyright out of the budget, and then that leaves less of the pie. So if you've got 120 grand for a Lionsgate film, and they blow 90 grand on one copyright for the opening scene, the opening title, then obviously you get the maths. They've got like 10 tracks, two grand each, all in on both sides. So it's kind of like that. And again, the amount of money that's spent on trailers is so disproportionate to the money that's spent in the music, unless you're talking about a Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that, where obviously the budgets are just they kind of name your price.
I've had a couple of good trailers. I did Inglourious Bastards.
Right. Okay. Nice.
And all I did was.
Yeah, and you get what's called in the business as a kind of needle drop sort of little cues where again it's small amounts of money that tends to be more for sort of TV, and again there is no rate card. There is no. It's like sync pricing is literally like, it's not rabbit out of a hat. It's just like, how do you value your music? And again, it comes down to the the kudos of the song. Is it a really popular song? Is it a radio hit? Is it with a particular publisher? If you get a publishing deal with Sony ATV or one of the bigger publishing companies, they are going to value that copyright obviously much more than what you would probably do yourself, because they're experienced in their area. It's their job to exploit and earn as much money for that right as possible. Now, sometimes, again, that can lead to you not getting a specific placement because they've almost put a ceiling or a lower limit. Now, if you're Fleetwood Mac, it's not a problem because you're kind of rolling in cash. But if you're your baby band and Sony, you've done a deal and you go, oh my God, amazing! I've got a deal with Sony ATV. I'm nearly there, or I'm there, and they're kicking back 10 grand, 20 grand sinks. You're going, Jesus, that could be the that's our road trip money. Yep. For our next tour.
Yep.
So it's always a little bit of a as I said, balancing act on how you price things and all that sort of stuff. So
Let's pause on that one for a second, because that's a good one. That's where I think a lot of independent bands can win. And I've seen, there's one artist I work with, David, from the Workday release, which people are familiar with here. And his whole first album is all over MTV. It was what was the name of that show he was on? Like 16 and Pregnant or something like that. The Teenage Moms, or something like that, or both of them. And it didn't pay much up front. It's done well for publishing on the back end.
Yeah.
He is the writer. But we have songs that are streaming hundreds and hundreds of thousands on Spotify. And now he's in this sort of place now where he's making the difference between working a crappy job at a bar or not.
Yeah.
But he's an independent artist.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I see, and he gets like several, like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of listeners every single month. Better than a lot of major label, artists that are trying to break.
Yeah.
The difference is a lot. I mean, he's very proactive, works incredibly hard. We're always doing stuff and very in touch with his career. I do believe, I don't want to promise that the business model exists for everybody, but I think there's an opportunity if people work hard and are focused to do it, because I see artists like him.
Yeah.
Not having to work every crappy job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, obviously, like, if you are...
Because I think this is the question that people want to know. I know if I'm sitting there on the other side here, there's a lot of people here that are either in full-time jobs or something, and they're just like, well, I'm making 60 grand a year. Could I ever do that doing music and more?
Yeah, look, there's no question that it's super competitive. We know that. It's always been super competitive. I think that the parameters have obviously changed post 2003 with iTunes and all that sort of stuff, and the whole digital revolution and the switch over. I think that it has become. I think that the tide has turned. Revenues across the industry have been going up year on year for the last 4 or 5 years. We have seen more sort of vinyl sales. Obviously, streaming is becoming more popular. With the likes of Apple Music and Spotify and stuff like that. I think Spotify are up to 72 million paid subscribers. They've
Yep.
still got their free kind of ad model as well. So look, it's not ideal, and I think that if you're not a performing artist and you're just a songwriter, you don't have that potential live revenue. You can't necessarily go on tour, which is difficult. So I think that's quite tough. But I think, look, it comes down to writing good songs and getting cuts and getting your songs, and getting in the room with the right other writers, and then getting the cuts with the big artists. I think that's where the money is from a publishing perspective. If you are a songwriter, that's.
Although with songwriters and being one myself, I mean, I've got Mark Broussard did a few of my songs. Josh Radin in particular, as you know, is a huge licensing guy, and I've actually made good money off a song I wrote with him. But when it comes to the record sale or even the Spotify kind of route, just to let you know from my perspective, is unless you have a single, you're not going to make a lot.
No, absolutely. I mean,
that's a singles world.
It's almost like it's like the marketing vehicle to the ancillary revenues. It's the promotion really for the up and coming tour, or it's the.
But while we're on the subject, we're talking about co-writing with artists. That is another thing, even though it's outside the sync thing. But I think a good thing to reiterate is if you want to cut on an album, write with the artist. Don't pitch them a song.
Yeah.
When I was working with Aerosmith, I got 100 billion people sending me their songs, and I'm like, you could have written the next mega smash, but they're not going to do it. So
they're not stupid. They know that the money is in the publishing,
so they want to write their own songs.
Of course they do, and I think that that is obviously that is the game to play, and then obviously again seeking out who are really good writers that you think as well that kind of complement your style, and maybe whoever their management is, go and approach them and all that sort of stuff. So that's another kind of key route to market, really, is getting with the right management. That sometimes not always just going with the publisher is the right route. There is that route, but management can then take you through up to the right publisher and stuff like that. So yeah. Cool.
I'm always a little afraid of music libraries to a certain extent, only because I see people disappearing into it. And it's great power for them to have a massive catalogue because they can have a song about anything. But when you were talking about the smaller, younger, leaner, more aggressive, that's my word, but more aggressive companies, I like that because I know that there's, as opposed to a huge conglomerate that's got 100,000 songs.
Yeah. I mean, I think, ultimately it comes down to, as I said, if you're Peer Music, you've got your infrastructure, which is great, and they've got offices all over the place. I use them as a good example just because they're very well established. I think they're if not the largest independent publisher out there. Well, they're certainly up there. But as I said, that they don't have to hustle. People in this business, as we know, you have to hustle and you have to.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And when I say hustle, it's not about.
This is a guy who finished at 2 a.m.
It's not, it's hustle in the word that you're not conning someone or anything like that.
No, I understand.
In the word that you've got to work your ass off basically, and you've got to sometimes. You've got to take those doors that are open to you, but also try and make things happen. Because if you don't, then unfortunately, that is going to be the potential difference between you not having your head above the parapet and because it's such a competitive space. So it's that's the reality of it. You just got to work your ass off.
Just looking at some questions. I did see something the other day, which has been around for a while, saying it was a big blog piece that's got some great SEO on it, telling people not to bother registering their songs, and I didn't like that at all. I think, and there's a couple of questions about copyrights. Should you copyright every track you upload? I believe you should. That's my personal thing. I don't think there's any harm in registering your song if you're with ASCAP, your BMI, CSAC, if you're with PRS, whatever it is.
What's
your thoughts?
I first registered my own songs back in 93, 94. I'm still getting royalty checks today. I haven't written a song or released a song since 2004. So I still obviously get the odd things that are coming through for, you know, odds and sods. So
and
I
you
think
feel protected.
well, yeah, I think it's not. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's that, but I think that ultimately it's almost like a pension. I mean, you know, these copyrights, you own a copyright for 70 years after you die. So if you're lucky enough to live for till at least 70 or 80 years old, you know, there's a good 140, 150 years there of copyright that if you register it, then, you know, who knows what might happen in 50 years time when, I'm beyond the grave. It might be that, you know, my family benefit from something that I wrote. Who knows? I think that you know, look, it's you know, it's unlikely that someone's going to pick something up and all of a sudden make a hit out of it, but you never know. And I think it's important, and it doesn't take too long. I think if you get in a routine, it also is really important that, like you say, it's if you're gonna, especially if you're going into the sync world, you've really the supervisors use that as a professional due diligence. If you've registered a song, it helps them. Don't forget, when they're doing a clearance, they are legally liable if there's an infringement or they forget to clear it with a writer that you forgot to tell them about. Someone's got 10% because they did a bit of a top line or a bit of a lyric on there, and you haven't kind of told them and it's not been cleared. That's a copyright infringement, and if that's going out on a film, again, it's unlikely, but you know, that writer is within their rights to say, hey, you know, take that down. You have not, you know, and I'm going to sue you. And especially, you know, well, I mean, that can happen worldwide, but I mean, like, you know, it's more, you have it, you know, in America, there's more of a litigation culture. That's the word I was looking for.
Yep.
So I think that, you know, I think it's important, and as I said, it will build up over the years.
Yep. How can you copyright from another country? I mean, what copyrights are worldwide?
So when you register at say ASCAP or PRS, you can enter into a worldwide registration, and then they send the details off to all the PROs around the world.
Would that be the same? I'm not sure where you are, Jose, but I'm gonna guess that you're somewhere in Latin America. Let's just say. So how would that work if I was in, say, Brazil?
Yeah. So you could. There is a Brazilian PRO, but you can
Brazil
register. Yeah, they will do the world, because all the PROs basically have a network and kind of like joint agreements with each other. So when you register your work in, say, PRS in the UK, it will be shown up and flagged eventually in ASCAP and BMI. But look, you know, you can register your works in different territories. So, for example, if you really feel that, you know, America, Canada, and the UK, and maybe Germany is your main 4 key territories where you're getting the most broadcast revenue, register directly with those 4 territories. Okay, there's a little bit more legwork, but you can do individual ones, and then you can say, right, I want ASCAP to collect everywhere else outside of those 4. So I think that.
So let me just clarify. So if I went, a good country for me, I'm sure for you as well, is Netherlands. The Netherlands pays, I don't know, 10 times more than I get from my US checks. Amazing revenue. So should I go to a PRO in the Netherlands and sign up for it?
Yes, absolutely. And the benefit of doing that is that basically you're going to get your money quicker, and you're more likely to get it more accurately, because obviously, like, if you go and register your works at ASCAP and there's some sort of issue, what happens is at the end of the distribution period for a PRO, they are going to account back to all the other PROs, and then it will go into another phase of accounting when you get it. So there's usually a big delay in you getting your royalties from overseas. That's basically how it works, because most of the PROs account yearly to each other, whereas PRS and ASCAP, I think are they quarterly now, or they're half, whatever. So if you register directly, you're basically getting your accounting quicker, and then therefore you're more likely to get your money quicker. So that's the real main advantage. And then if do
all major publishing companies, PRS, Sony ATV, BMG, do they?
Most of them are either registered direct, and then some of the bigger, some of the independent publishers, they will do what's called sub-publishing deals in exclusively by territory, and therefore that publishing company will obviously have the direct PRO registrations. So, I mean, again, that's quite a common model where a publishing company, say in the UK, will have a sub-publisher in America, Canada, on all the different territories, including Asia, Japan.
So if I'm working in whatever Sony ATV in England, am I sitting there registering?
Well, Sony are probably a little bit different in the sense of, like, obviously all the majors will have, if you've got your own office in a territory, then you're going to register it yourself. There wouldn't be any reason to be a sub-publisher. So really, it's kind of like designed for, if you're a registered, publisher only with one office only in, New York, for example, then obviously you're going to handle all your US registration. You might do Canada as well, but you might then have a sub-publisher in the UK. And again, a sub-publisher isn't just about collections. A good sub-publisher is about exploiting the copyrights. That's the reason for things like syncs. So that's why you do a deal there.
On a logistical thing, if I'm American and I do have a lot of songs, so and I'm based in America, do I register in the Netherlands? Can I have that payee address be in the US?
Yeah, you can.
So I don't need to register a company.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So you can register with a PRO and say that I'm in America and
here's the bank details. Bob's your uncle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
I've never heard this one before. This is great. Yeah, I mean, you know what? Somebody's saying ASCAP screwed up the processing last quarter. Yes, I've had that with, because I have a publishing company and different people I work with are on CSAC and ASCAP and BMI. I've had good and bad experiences and messed it up every now and then. It is what it is. Schnizzle happens. You know what I mean? It's like, they can make a mistake and overpay you and underpay you the next one. But it's usually dollars, a handful of dollars. Okay, it's global music and blah, blah, blah. ASCAP supposed to anticipate mega plays. I've had great experiences, by the way, with everybody. BMI have done great work, ASCAP, CSAC.
It's worth mentioning as well, like
yes,
sound exchange.
Oh yeah, I'm on sound exchange.
Obviously, if you own if you own master rights, get your registrations done. It's PPL is in the UK. They've actually just done a merger actually with PRS. So it's going to kind of be one thing soon. I don't know exactly when that's happening. Obviously, Sound Exchange in the US and SOCAN in Canada do both, sides. And again, this is this is another kind of thing that people kind of jargon buster quickly. So neighbouring rights, which some of your
I've been approached about that. Tell me a bit
more.
Yeah,
I mean, basically, it's the Sound Exchange mechanicals overseas. So basically, neighbouring rights is basically anything outside of your territory. So there are companies that will collect neighbouring rights income for you. Again, there's some companies out there that do that. Again, you can register directly, and I think you can, obviously, again, with Sound Exchange, get them to claim your rights worldwide. Again, there's this kind of like distribution lag in time and stuff like that. So
I had somebody contact me last year about neighbouring rights, telling me that they estimated I was losing X number of dollars a year.
Yes.
It was a guy in England, and I'm blanking on the name. Sorry. It was definitely in the UK. I believe it was in England. And there
was a figure that someone said to me, something like that. There's at least $1 of royalties on the Sound Exchange side for every $2 of publishing. So, but don't quote me on that, because it could be like for like or something. But there's, at the end of the day, if you're collecting, you're getting your royalty checks through, and they're coming through quite well, and you're not claiming for your master rights and stuff like that, you could potentially be losing out on 50% of that income, additional.
So here's a dumb question, because I'm dumb, and I'm sure people want to know this. So yes, I mean I do Sound Exchange deals now with every artist I work with. We make sure that paperwork's filled out when I produced an album. Actually, several questions are coming to mind, sorry. But the one, a big one for me is, where does the money go if it's not claimed?
I don't know. I know that there is, I believe there's like there's a magic pot. No, I don't know whether it's a magic pot. There is a pot, And I think that after a certain period, I believe, and again, don't quote me on this, but if the money is not allocated after a certain period specifically, then I think they divvy up and kind of pro rata share some of that revenue out. Again, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that that's roughly how it works.
Because there was, back in the olden days, I know with the Musicians Union, I know with, they would take like a slush fund and divide it equally based on your percentage earnings. So if you were a high earner, you might get 10% or whatever it might be. I'm making up numbers.
But if you're Universal,
yeah,
and you own, you know, 85% of the market share of commercial music in, you know, in the world, you're going to get the lion's share of that pot.
Sure.
So I think that, I think there's some sort of magic fuzziness that goes on and of how they redistribute it. So I'm not 100% sure, but it's a good question to ask ask PRS or PPL or you know, Sound Exchange, etc.
All right, another one, because the US, and we've obviously got a lot of people in for US, a lot of people all over the world, but this is a big one. The US is one of, like, I think it's the US and Turkey and one other country that doesn't pay performers. So when your song gets played on the radio, the only people that are getting paid are the publishers and the writers in America.
Yeah.
If you played guitar on it and you sung on it, you get diddly dan squat.
Yeah. So again, that's a kind of a, you know, that's been an unfair thing that's been around for quite some time. There has been some noise and some people that have been trying to get a movement going to change the law. It's all, I think it's, you know, it's a really, you know, old rule. You know, it's an old law, and you know, I don't know, I can't see that changing anytime soon.
No, nor can I. But it does raise the question: if you're based in the US and you've got songs playing all over the world, whether they be in commercials or Spotify, whatever it is, radio play here and there, how do you, as a US registered person, or can you get paid as a performer in all those different territories? Is that your neighbouring rights?
Yes, that's your neighbouring rights, and or if you're registering with ASCAP or BMI, etc., and you can get them to claim everything worldwide. It just is a slow process. So I'm just saying that, you know, if you know that you're getting loads of traction in a particular territory.
Is there an area on ASCAP or BMI where you can say that you're a performer on these tracks and collect that money?
Yeah, I think you can register as a performer, but I think the main stuff is through Sound Exchange for performance.
Right.
So if you're a musician or you're a performer, you get a percentage on the mechanical side.
I know the Musicians Union in the UK pays me.
Yeah.
For songs that I played on. I played on a James Blunt song that did well, and I got paid. From that, but then I also have an address in the UK, so I can do that. That's what I'm wondering. Can you do that as a US citizen?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. I'm not, you know, it's not my absolute area of expertise.
No, it's just a great conversation point.
No, absolutely.
We're revealing a lot of different revenue streams here. Session players, years ago, they had a union scale to go. No one complained because they were making $1,000, but it changed the industry and no longer workable. Session players still get paid that. Just as a quick one outside of the session player stuff, if you're working on film and TV, like movie stuff, you still get paid. I have lots of friends that go in and do movie session dates, and they get paid union rates. And the same for a commercial. If somebody hired you specifically for it, you'll still get paid. It gets into a grey area when they come to a sole proprietor, a guy like me or you, and says, write a song for it. You know, then if I happen to hire a background singer, it's up to me to sue that. But unfortunately, I had a situation, I'm sure you've seen this many times, where we did a song for a TV show and they came back to us and said there's a gang vocal on it. We were like, sure. And they're like, we cannot register 12 people as singers on this song. We can't pay that. So we had to strip off all the voices and only have one guy singing the background.
Yeah, no, I think it's difficult because obviously with union rates you pay there's sync reuse fees as well. So you know, if they are union performers and stuff like that, there's reuse sync fees, SAG-AFTRA, and you know, there's the Musicians Union in the UK. So again, it can be a complex issue, but you know, ultimately it comes down to, you know, look, that's why people hire supervisors.
Sure.
If you're on a film and someone starts whistling a tune randomly, you're and it's recognizable, you're straight into infringement territory. So it's that sensitive. There's been lots of scenarios where the directors and the actors, they're acting, they pull up a guitar and start strumming something recognizable, and the supervisor who should be there, no, you can't just play that Jimi Hendrix lick. That's not happening, because you're not going to get it cleared. So anything that's on the screen,
well, you might get it cleared, but the check will be absolutely enormous, so we don't have the budget for it.
Absolutely. You just don't have the budget for it. So
I worked on X Factor, and we would do the tracks. I was producing the tracks for X Factor, and we would come in with a list of pre-cleared songs.
Oh, absolutely.
It was as simple as that. They would say, hey, it's Motown week, and there'd be a massive amount, maybe 500 songs, but these songs we're okay to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
But of course, every now and then a singer would be like, I really want to do a cover of, and they're like, They'd make the phone call, the check would be, they'd be like, sorry.
No, absolutely. Cool. Well, listen, I'm going to have to wrap. But
Marvellous.
I'd like to just say thanks for any of your questions. I will be checking out the forum. So if you've got any questions, like Warren said, then I'm more than happy to answer any specific stuff that we didn't cover on here. But thanks.
Marvellous.
Thanks,
please like and share, everybody. Let other people know. To be honest, this is one of the most forthcoming and straightforward.
No, thank you. No, it's good.
Ever music supervision quiz. Oh, Matt Diamante says mention the contest. So wait there, Matt. Text us. What's the contest? The contest is like we're going to choose. I'm throwing you under the bus.
Go on.
It's a song. It's a song contest.
Yeah. So we're doing. I think we're doing a. We want to hear people's music, and obviously we're going to be listening to everything and seeing what is great for kind of sync. And I think that just as a thank you, I think that we're going to give away a Rode microphone or some microphones and stuff like that. To be honest with you, because I've been in LA, I've been a little bit out of the loop. But look, we're going to put some details on the forum and probably on your blog and all that sort of stuff.
And there is a link. There is a link that just came up. Click on it. And also the link will be under the video. And when it's finished, Matt will put it in a little... over there somewhere, is it that side? There will be a little thing to click up there, won't there, Matt?
Cool.
And I'll be there the whole time, won't it, Matt? Matt's going to text me back, yes.
Good stuff.
So, yes, and also we'll mix the winning track. If it needs remixing, I'll remix it as a part of the prize.
Well, thanks very much for having me, and all good.
Go to the forum. If you're an Academy member, Matt says yes. and some things that I can't repeat that he's texting. So yes, please, if you're an Academy member, go to the forum. You can ask specific direct questions there. We're also going to, Matt, and Eric, who's listening, I want to put together a cheat sheet. A little cheat sheet of some of these things. Tune set and a couple of other things. Maybe just some generic, interesting, important information about PROs and how to get... Like I said, I'm represented by all of them because I have a publishing company. I don't have an opinion on people ask me who's the best. All I can say is that they've all performed really well for me and that they exist because they're all great. BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, they're all really
It's
good
a
companies.
Subjective business.
Exactly.
And, someone, a publisher might be brilliant for a particular person.
Exactly.
And someone might have had a bad experience. It doesn't make that publisher necessarily a bad
publisher.
Exactly. It's just, it hasn't worked out. So I think that, it's horses for courses, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Thanks, Warren.
Thank you.
Right,
Thanks, John.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. Please like and share. I want a lot of people to watch this. This is absolutely wonderful. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. Hit that competition link there. Send in your songs. And we'll speak to you all again very, very soon. And thank you, John. It's amazing.